Mayor Nieves Regil. Present. Mayor Yola Corona. Item number 2. Item number 2A, discussion and review of any and all matters regarding the proposed changes to the city's health benefits plan by Susan Posada and the city of San Luis budget for fiscal year 2023-2024 by staff.
Thank you. Thank you. The next one. It might be a better deal. Do I use this one here? Mayor, city council. Oh. What do you want me to do? Yeah.
Somewhere over here.
Oh, wait a minute.
Somewhere over here.
Hey, everybody, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about over here? Okay. Okay. So, city council and staff, thank you for allowing me to be here. I really appreciate your time. We've worked really hard with HR on your budget. And I know I'm gonna make this quick because it's happy hour somewhere. Okay, so it's not been good news. The claims through March 2023 So we have what is called the $50,000 deductible on every person because we're self-funded. But this one person who is ill has a $650,000 deductible, which means that before any claims are paid, we have to pay out of our own budget and our own fund $650,000. That's what it came in initially. Without the laser, the increase is going to be 55%. So we're going to recommend a change in the stop loss carrier because we went out to bid and looked at other carriers to see what we can come up with. Here's the good news. The good news is I was able to obtain a laser on another individual, not the same one, for $185,000. And the other person that was lasered, $605,000 is no longer lasered. Okay, but this other second individual is now lasered. Again, that means $185,000 deductible. Okay, that means we have to pay $185,000 before any claims will be paid by the stop loss carrier. But we were able to decrease it from the 600,000, which is excellent. The total savings from the reduction of the laser is 420,000. This is what saved the plan, and from the reduction in the stop loss premium is 46,000. So this is the total savings that we did this year. And are there any questions before I go next to the next level? We have a Blue Cross renewal for 2 years. The renewal came in at only a 50% increase per employee per month. This is a really good renewal for 2 years because it's locked in. There are really basically no changes to the plans except these two. The plan change for the medical from Mexico. It was very confusing for employees in Mexico to have an out-of-pocket maximum. The out-of-pocket maximum was $4,500 for the individual and $9,000 for the family. And we decided to remove it and just put it at 0. And here's why. Because everything in Mexico is a copay. It's not co-insurance with 20% It doesn't have like a large deductible, and they're never, ever gonna reach that $4,500. So we removed it. The second thing that we did by the dental plan was really not a change. It was just an addition of verbiage, is a copay per visit. So for the basic services, it's a $5 copay per visit and a $10 copay per visit for the major services. We're gonna change, we're also looking at changing the third-party administrator from 90 Degrees over to HealthComp. And the two reasons that we did is we did bid it out, and we're saving quite a bit by moving over to HealthComp. But that wasn't the only, that wasn't the primary reason that we're changing. The other was service. We started to experience some service issues, and that was the primary reason that we did that. Huh?
I like that.
Okay, we did start experiencing, and really the problem started like about 6 to 8 months ago. Okay, fine.
I know it's whatever.
Okay, fine. Then we're changing. And HealthComp just purchased Gilsbar. So Gilsbar has been around for many years. The lady that has been assigned to us, her name is Stacy Grimaldi. She's been doing this for like 32 years. So she's very, very experienced. Health ESU, no changes. We're renewing it for another year. That's the Teladoc service in the bundle. Good news for everybody. On the vision, we did change the frame allowance from $150 to $200. This takes effect July 1st. Okay. The contact lens allowance is $130 to $150. And we also added what is called VSP Light with UV and blue light coverage. And what that means is those that do not need prescription glasses, they now can get sunglasses with UV protection. Okay, it's not, you can't have all of it. You can have one of those three, but not everything. Okay, so that is really good news that they are able to get a sunglasses up to $200 value with the UV protection. Any questions so far? Thank you for your business. That's it. Unless you have any questions,
I do.
I'm gonna drive home. Okay, let me move over here a
Question.
second.
Once, make it.
You said questions.
Did I go fast enough? Yeah.
On the, you said there was a 32.9 increase in claims.
Yes,
Does that increase our budget?
yes.
Premium. The premium or allocation? That's the word.
Yes, I think I'm gonna defer that to Monica, that question. The question, the premium. Yes, it does increase it.
So we're gonna need to budget more money or?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. As we heard from Mrs. Posada, the payments are increasing. No question about that. Right now, the contributions in the year is $3.2 million in the year. With the premium increase, the contributions will be $3.9 million. We got together as a team and we discussed about the alternatives, whereas if we should increase the premium to the employees in the city. And we also had the alternatives of not doing it. The reason we proceeded and not doing the increase is because right now the trust has a 4 million positive balance. We have 4 million in cash reserves. We think that the $900,000 for the next year would help deplete a little bit of those reserves. Best financial practices also tells us that when we have a lot of money accumulated, let's use it for the greater good of the employees rather than keep accumulating more money. So we made a decision of not increasing the premiums this year. The premiums are increased, but we made a decision of not increasing the budget or charging more to the employees. But definitely, this is something that we need to follow very closely. I don't think that in next year we'll be in a position to do that. It's just pretty much holding the moment right now, but right now is the time to think in the future and how we can move forward so that we can accumulate more revenues. How can we make that impact less damage, less adverse for the employees? Look for a good solution for the future. Pretty much just holding it. And let's look for a solution rather than increasing them right now.
So. Are we allocating more money or taking money
Or
from
tap into reserves,
of the trust?
yeah, the 4 million. So that amount is what, you said 900,000 or 600 something?
700,000 is about the downside, and we have 4 million, so we think that pretty much we're looking into like a good cushion. It will be 9 months, so taking that dipping into the reserves and wouldn't put us less than the 9 months in claim. So we're also looking for financial stability. That's why we wouldn't recommend it if we didn't feel comfortable about that.
I think that's safe move.
Yes, definitely. I am a very conservative person. Many of you know me. I wouldn't recommend something that I wouldn't feel comfortable that it would affect us in the adversity.
And it wasn't right, Tadeo, that we giving the employees an increase aquí. Y ahora, van a pagarnos por la seguridad teniendo ese dinero ahí.
No, that I get. I'm
Yes.
just worried about the
The allocation.
taking the allocation from the trust or at least not adding or keeping it as it is. Because it is we are self-funded, so that's what, I mean, no, I agree 100% with that, what you're saying, Mayor, and what has been said, just the taking money from the trust. Well, I don't know. Makes me uneasy, maybe because I've dealt with it for 20 years. It just,
Right,
it's just like, because it's a 32.9 increase by so far as March, so what if something happens between now and the 30, I don't know.
Right, and that is our reason. We're very conservative, like I mentioned. Even taking that hit, we will have more than 10 months in reserves, almost a year. Like we want to keep our contribution. Right now we have 4 million. We want to put 2.2 million more in a year, 7.2 million. So it's still like, I think it's a very conservative. We're not like leaving only 10% in reserves. We're leaving about 70% of reserves now.
Thank you.
No, I just wanted to make sure that everyone felt comfortable. And if they have any further questions, I'm here to respond.
Monica, you mentioned there's more money coming into the trust.
Right, because that is the reserves that we have 4 million, but still like we have to keep contributing every year. So our contributions that the city makes in a year is 3.2 million. So we want to put another 3.2 million in a year. Right now, Mrs. Total explained that it is about 3.9 million that we expect will be our expenses. So we'll be having about 7.2 million minus 3.9 million. So we have about like 3 million left.
I think that, I think everything will be okay. Let me assure you. It's not easy for me to say, but basically we have done an excellent job of building that trust to 4 million. We did it for a rainy day. That's what we wanted to do it. Last year it rained, this year it poured. Next year, it may be torrential rain. Okay, we don't know. But here's how we're protecting ourselves. One of the things that we looked at was increasing the stop loss so we can decrease some of our costs to 100,000. But we decided to keep it at 50, except for the one person that's going to be at 185. So we kept it low enough to protect the fund. Okay, so that's gonna be okay. As long as we continue to put in that money every month like they have been doing, then I believe that everything will be okay. You agree?
Yeah, that doesn't, you hit the nail on the hammer, yeah, because, like she explains, like we have mechanisms to, protect the trust, that's why we have the stop loss insurance, so that at one point that fits in and we don't spend more, there are a couple of instances that we have to spend more, but that is also what we have that reserve, we're not depleting, we're just taking what we feel comfortable doing, but we wouldn't, if it would have been something that we will feel it would jeopardize the financial health of the trust, rest assured that it will be something that we wouldn't recommend. But of course, at the end of the day, this is something that will be discussed at the board. And it's something that if the board at the end of the day doesn't agree, we'll have to go in another way. But and we want to talk in the financial presentation right now, because if it increases, it would affect also now the other portion of the city.
Ms. Posada, I have another question for you. So, obviously, we can't tell employees not to go to the doctor, right? We need to take care of ourselves and our family, but I've taken advantage of the Health ESU, the teledoc. And I'm pretty sure that is way less expense on the city than going to the urgent care or even to the emergency room. But I think sometimes we tend to forget that that option is available. I think something that would be beneficial for employees to know is maybe have like workshops for organizations to come out here, have employees log on, register their information, create their accounts at their family members. Because I took advantage one time with my son, he wasn't in the policy, it was only me. And even though he's not in my policy, he was able to see the doctor because we live in the same household. So those are things that sometimes not everybody is aware of, and I think that we need to teach and train the employees on how to take advantage of that benefit that we have, especially because there's no copay. They didn't charge me that time. So it was, they sent the script to Walmart as soon as I was done from the conferencing, and it was an antibiotic and cough syrup, and I went and picked it up, and it was pretty nice to do it from home.
Correct.
So, and the fact that my stepson wasn't on insurance and he was still covered. So I think it would be good to have those workshops.
We just finished 2 full days of enrollment meetings. And it was pretty detailed, everything that we went through with all the employees, with all the vendors, with Health ESU, with ESP. Everything was discussed with them. But this was the first year that we ever said to them, we've lost money and we need your help. We've given you this, now we need you to help us help you. This is the first time that we did something like this, and we got a great response. And we said, how are you going to help me help you? And most of them said, we're going to help you diet, we're going to help by exercising. And they all raised their hand and made a commitment to that. So I believe that we're heading in the right direction, but not only that, HR is a great, we budgeted $8,000 for a program in wellness. And they're going to be doing some great wellness programs because we do need it. Now it's indicative. Here's the problem that we've had this last year. Most of the situations that we had have been major illnesses that we could not have prevented. And I'd rather not talk about those, but they were things that we could not have prevented. But when we look at the medications that people are taking, their diabetes, high blood pressure, all of those things that lead to something pretty major. So those are the kinds of things that HR is aware of. Those are the things that we need to work on. And we talk about that in our enrollment meetings. We help employees make sure that they're utilizing the benefits the best way, what they have. Because we do offer a lot for them, a lot.
Any more questions, comments?
Thank you very much. Now I'm driving out, okay?
Okay. Be safe.
Our next presenter is the Department of Finance, Ms. Monica Castro, Director of Finance.
Sorry, Steve. Yep. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the council. It is a pleasure to be here. I consider the budget retreat a very important event for the city of San Luis. This is a day where we come together and we set some time aside from our regular working hours to talk about the progress that we have made on projects, talk about the challenges that we ahead, and for planning for the future. So what are the objectives for this budget retreat? So I will be presenting an overview of a proposed budget, the challenges that we have. We will talk a little bit about history, and I will present also some information about our major direction. I will be providing an overview of expenses and revenues, and the departments. Then we'll be providing an overview of the departments, and we'll be talking about the accomplishments for this year, and then we'll be telling you about what are the plans for next fiscal year. Also, an important part of the budget retreat is to hear from you. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear your ideas. If you see anything that we are missing, let us know. This is the time to understand what are your priorities and make sure that we plan to make them happen. So that goes along with planning for the future. We need to come together and make a plan for the future. There's so many things going in the city of San Luis, and I think that we can do more working collaboratively than separate. So I'm going to just give you an overview of the budget timeline. I know we have a couple of new council members. I just want to get them to understand a little bit about the process. So the budget process takes from beginning to end 6 months. December 5th, we sent out the budget guidelines for what we expect for the year, the requests, what are the requirements that we need from them. In March and April, we hold budget review sessions with department heads to review the request for the next year. Right now, we're here at the budget retreat, April. And on June 14th, we are expecting to present the tentative budget to council. Once it's presented to council and approved, we have to publish it in the newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks. During that period, residents have the opportunity to come to you and talk to you and say, we like what you're doing, or this is missing, we can make changes. But once the tentative budget is approved, we cannot increase the budget. We only can make changes between departments and allocations. So that's what is a very important point to consider for the tentative budget. And on June 28th, we held a public hearing and we present the budget for adoption. The budget becomes a legal document that is going to tell us how we want to spend the funds next year. But the nice thing about the budget is that the budget is a flexible document. We don't have a crystal ball to know what is going to happen next year. So if situations arise that we need to change it, we have the ability to do so, but we gotta make sure that we follow the appropriate procedures. So with the budget adopted, the process doesn't end there. Now it comes the execution, the monitoring, and like I was mentioning, the adjustment if necessary. So also, to ensure that we have a successful budget, it is important to have the priorities well defined. The priorities that we took into consideration to prepare the budget this year was to maintain the level of service to our residents, retention and attraction of employees, plan for street expansion to support the growth of the city of San Luis. Also, expansions of the water and wastewater plants, investing in parks and recreations for our community, and foster economic development to create jobs and improve the quality of life for our residents. So this is what we had in mind. If there's anything that we are missing, let us know. If it's something that you would like to change, let us know. So let's start with the finance historical data. So this chart presents the revenues and expenditure histories for the past 4 years. For the first 3 years, we are presenting actual figures. For the 23, we're presenting the budget. As you can see, we have had positive financial performance in the past years, where revenues have exceeded the expenditures. This has allowed to build up significant reserves. And in combination with grants, with the ARPA funding that we received and other grants that we have obtained, we are positioned to make a lot of investments in the city of San Luis. So our budget for fiscal year 2024 is $105,964,000. This is the largest we ever had. I thought last year was our largest. And each year I keep getting surprised because the number keeps increasing. As we go, we want to get into more detail in each of the categories. Like right now, we want to start with the revenues. I think it's important to understand that story, look at each category separately and in detail. So for the revenues, we have seen a very consistent increase. The only outlier is in fiscal year 2021. We see a spike, and this is mainly due to the economic stimulus from COVID from the government. Also, on that year, we obtained financing, or we issued bonds to pay off the unfunded liability for PSPRS. So that's what brought a lot of revenue in that year. In 2022, the effects of COVID it started to ease up, so we returning to normalcy. So the pre-pandemic levels, we were returning to those pre-pandemic levels. And in 2024, we are projecting a revenue of $94.7 million. The amount sounds very significant. However, if you look at the yellow blocks, those are the money that is coming from grant revenues. In 2023, we expected to get grants. We obtained them, but with grants, we cannot recognize them as revenue until they are spent. So there have been delay in the spending of grants. So all that money is moving forward to 2024, which is causing mainly the difference that we see from one year to the other. Also, just for reference, just to give you an idea, like I mentioned, for the budget next year, our revenues were $76.7 million. Like I mentioned, we did not spend that grant money. It was not recognized. So at the end of the day, we projected we are going to finalize at $56 million for the year. The general fund. The general fund is the largest and most important source of revenue for the city. The general fund is the fund that sustain the governmental activities for the police, parks, fire, developmental service, and internal support functions of the city. So that's what I think is important to look into more detail, because pretty much the general fund is what sustains us, right? So for the fiscal year 2024, we are expecting $33.9 million in revenue from the general fund. And right here, you can see that 41% comes from city sales tax, and 53% comes from intergovernmental revenue. Intergovernmental revenue is the state share tax. Is like we get the sales tax, we get the income tax revenues, and we get the license vehicle license tax. As you see, that's total 94% of the total revenue. So I like to show these two council just so that you get an idea of how much we rely in just two sources of income. Just two sources of income make the 94% of the general fund. So if something happens in the economy, if there is a downturn, it will be in a very difficult situation. Now, to give you a better idea of the performance that we have had in the past year for the main sources, for city sales tax, the trend is upward. That's good. We have everything has been going well despite of COVID. It didn't affect the city as everybody was expecting. We survived that. For state sales tax is the same situation. The trend is upward. Vehicle license tax, the same situation. And when I see same situation is that you always want to see a steady, consistent increase. When you see increases that are not consistent, that's when you know that you cannot rely too much on those and that information, because you don't know what you're going to get next year. So from those sources, the only one that I am keeping a close eye is urban revenue sharing. That is the income tax portion of the state. As everybody knows, the state just adopted a 2.5% flat tax. That definitely is going to have a negative effect on the city. But right now we are not seeing it, and we are not seeing it, I think, for next year or the next year, probably. So right now what happened is that LEED negotiated with the state. Usually we were getting the 50% share of the state share, and they negotiated for us to get 18% for all municipalities, for us to build a cushion for that negative effect that is coming. So for 2024 is the only year that we're going to be getting 18% share at a regular taxes, so that we can build up some cushion. That's why you see this big revenue coming. However, we should treat it as a one-time revenue, because the intention for that is to help us sustain when the we get the effects of the reduced estate tax. Expenses. So for expenses is the same story. They have been increasing gradually. Thankfully, like I mentioned, they have been less in the revenues. We have been able to build up reserves. In 2021, you saw the increase to 50 million, about 24% from 2020. Again, it's related to the PSPRS issuance. We pay in this totality the unfunded portion of the public safety PSPRS. And in 2022, you can see that it decreases because in 2022, we didn't have that extraordinary event. So pretty much we came back to normalcy again. And then we kept increasing. And in 2023, we project 51.1 million, which is much less than the budget that we projected last year. Last year, we budgeted 85.6 million. And this gap is mainly to delays in grant expenditure, like I mentioned with the revenues. but also vacancies and supply chain issues, which affected the construction of infrastructure. Just so you can get an idea of how significant is that grants. In the chart below, you can see the difference between one and the other. And the reason that I wanted to put it separate is because I wanted to make a difference. Having grants is good, is great, because we're getting money that is not coming out of the treasury of the city, and we're getting projects done. So we have $33 million, which include ARPA funds and grants related to the construction of the Cesar Chavez Boulevard and other different grants. So that's great, but when we look at the general expenses, we have 72.8 million. When we look at against budget, that one has the grants included at 85 million, and last year we included about 20 million. So we talking about 20 million less or 65. We have an increase of $10 million more in expenses, which I'm going to explain in more detail in the next slide. Okay. So this slide is showing us how much our expenses are increasing in comparison with budget 2022. So we are budgeting $10.2 million more than last year. And most of those expenses are in salaries. It's about 3.9 million, almost $4 million. The second category is capital items, $3.6 million. And special services, $1.8 million. The remaining of the increases are going into supplies, maintenance, and long-term service. I didn't want to include grants in this analysis because, like I said, grants, they don't matter. Grants, they don't come out. We don't utilize city general funds. Grants are money that doesn't affect the bottom line of the city. But this 10 million is 10 million that are going to have to come up from that 33 million that I just explained. But also just wanted to disclose this 10 million is for the citywide. It's not just the general fund. It is for the citywide funds. So if we sustain these increases for water, wastewater, and solid waste, the utility rate increase just passed. So I think that we're in a very good position to sustain those increases. Those funds, I think they're in the green line. I'm not concerned about those. The funds that I am concerned and that I am looking very closely are the general fund and the HERF fund. And for financial sustainability, operating expenditures increases must be spent with recurrent revenues streams because we want to make sure that we can sustain them at the long term. Capital projects and one-time expenditures, yes, those we can spend with one-time money or reserves. Here you can see more clearly, and this is just the general fund. Now we're like going from the whole city, jumping into more the detail of the funds that are of concern. So for the general fund, we have incremental revenues of 2.8 million. The incremental expenses that right now we have in the general fund are 4.2 million. So we're looking at a shortfall of 1.4 million. And right here in the next chart that that is to the left, you can see in more detail where those increases are coming from. About 2.5 million are coming from salaries, and 1.7 million are coming from operational expenses. I want to mention that we have been working together to reduce that impact. In fact, that shortfall initially was $2 million. We have been working together in collaboration with administration to make those reductions. But right now we're at a crossroads. When you get to the point that everything is important And how do you make the decision on where to reduce when everything is important? So that's one of the things that we would like to hear from you. And looking at the information and giving us some directions on where to go. Because unfortunately, there's so much need, there's so much things that need to be done, but there are only limited revenues to do them. Also, just to mention, this does not include capital projects, right? Because we're just looking at the current versus recurrent. So we understand that this is a very tough situation, and we wanted to give you some options. So the options that we are providing, it is, we can reduce 1.4 million for operational expenses. We just need your guidance on what to prioritize, where to cut, or how to accomplish it, because this is a part that is difficult because everything is important, but how do we go about it, right? The other option is to reduce our CIP allocation strategy, and I'm going to explain on how that works later. Or a combination of the two. Reduce operational and reduce CIP. So when I'm talking about a CIP allocation strategy, for the past year, we have been allocating about 10% of our revenues to CIP. Changing the allocation strategy is to reduce the CIP budget allocation to 7% moving forward. And the CIP budget allocation will only increase if there are additional resources of revenue that can ensure long-term sustainability. So pretty much it's kind of we have to make that decision. Do we live more in operational and we do less in CIP, or how do we balance it out? Or we do a combination of the two. So for streets, like I was mentioning, there's also another fund that has been interesting to look at. Revenues are 4.2 million. Expenses, operational, are 3 million approximately. So that leaves us with 1.2 million for CIP. For next year, we are budgeting 4.4 million in street projects that we know that are very much needed in the city. And we also budgeting $1 million for grants, which I think is a Merrill Street matching funds. So it's total, we are budgeting 5.5 million in CIP for next year. So we have a shortfall of 4.3 million for streets. So we have over 4 million in CIP projects, and HER funds are not enough to complete them. I have heard in prior occasions from Director of Public Works that, well, we have the vehicle license tax, let's put that one in HER. But if we put that one in HER, it's the same thing, because now we're gonna need to reduce 2.4 million in the general fund. And so it's kind of everything at the end is a pot that we're trying to sustain for the greater good. At the end of the day, we move from one place, but we open a hole in another one. So we just need to address that problem altogether. For 2024 general fund, we might be able to fund this with positive reserves because these are one-time expenditures. So that's good news. But the question is, for long-term financial planning, is $1.2 million enough for the future? So this is the part where we need to think, because at the end of the day, those positive reserves will run out. They're not going to be there forever. And once they run out, we're not going to be able, yeah, we might, but it's going to take time. It's not sure like how long. And we cannot rely on those positive reserves for the continuous operation. Is 1.2 million. There also the salaries keep increasing, operational costs keep increasing, so it's a part where we need to think about how we're gonna approach those challenges. So for CIP, we have $48.7 million for CIP for next year. Most of the expenditure is grants. And about $8 million, a combination of the grant, general fund and highway user fund is about 19% of that. For our 5-year CIP plan, we have about $152 million. This includes all the projects that have been submitted to finance for completion. We always look at the horizon, try to plan for the future. Right now, that's what we have, but I know that there are a couple of projects missing there. And this is also where it is important for you. In the last page of your budget book, you can see the list of capital projects. You can review it. You can let us know if something is missing, not just for this year, but also for the long-term planning, the 5-year plan. Anything that is missing, the most updated information that we have, the better that it is for us to plan appropriately. So now, do we have enough to fund all those CIP projects? So, and I'm just concentrating on the general fund and her, because thankfully, and thank you very much, Council, for taking the tough decision of adopting those rates. I know that it was a difficult thing to do. So right now, it's good that we're not, that we don't have to think about that right now. Like our only concentration is general fund and her, because those are the two funds that I see that we gotta be alert about them. So for the general fund, for the CIP over 5 years, is about $49.9 million. Like I mentioned, we have been able to build up positive reserves for our financial policy tells us that we always should keep 4 months of operational expenses, like I was mentioning, especially a city like us that we rely heavily only on unlimited sources of income. We gotta make sure that we have some funds for a rainy day, like right now what we were talking about that with the trust. We have to be financially responsible in that area. So we have 32 million in reserves minus the 4 months operational expenses that we need to leave there. We have about 22 million available for CIP. So that leaves us about 27.9 million of bond issuance. So we will need to issue debt. That's right now, that's, I'm not gonna say that it's final, it's just brainstorming, kind of putting something together for all of you, but there are, of course, there are other sources of revenue. We have impact fees, we might have grants. Grants, like, until we don't have them, we cannot count on them. Impact fees, we have about $4 million that I did not include there. But again, I did not include them because I'm thinking that we are missing so much projects that at the end of the day, it doesn't make a difference. For instance, we are not including the food cost for the East Park. How much would that cost? Right now in our budget, we only have, I think, $300,000. It's not gonna do nothing there. I don't know, what do we need, 20 million? So we're gonna have to increase that figure. We're not including the Olympic pool that I have been hearing about. I have been hearing about expansions for the city hall court. That's not included here, so that's what I thought. Okay, I think that this is just like to give you an idea where the situation. So let's say that this is real. But I think this is better, okay, because I know there are so many things missing. So if we will issue bonds for 27.9 million, the approximate debt service is about $2,100,000. We don't have right now that in the general fund to pay for that debt service. So we still have good reserves, and I don't think that, I think that maybe they will last, the way that I see the projects, maybe 3 years, 4 years. But we need to start thinking about it. Because right now we don't have 2 million to, if we need, if the day comes, like I know Cesar Chavez and he's looking for grants. Right now, 25 million, but if she doesn't get it, we're gonna have to. Pressure. Exactly. And that, so just to give you an idea of the situation.
And that's adding the 2.1 million additional debt possible service to the. Yeah.
Exactly, right now, I'm not, this is the future.
Right, that would be the future.
That's the future, yes, exactly, that's the future. Right now, I'm just saying, let's just balance the budget right now. But this is the future, and I just wanna give you all the vision of all the things that are in a line of all the projects of the city is growing. It's a beautiful city. I think there's so much things to do, but we need to be a strategic planning about how are we going to achieve the end goal.
To me, we can talk, but what we need to do seriously is work really hard on the property taxes, okay? If not, this is gonna be year after year. We're gonna be asked to choose and pick what it needs to be done, but everything needs to be done. I was writing down, how can we raise the money for the shortfall? I had talked to Mr. Guzman. It's time for people are gonna hate me. I mean, the builders are gonna hate me. It's time to increase the permit fees. When was the last time that it was done? It's time to start, there's a $260 per acre fee when we start a project. It should go at least $800. So there's ways that we can mitigate all of these. But the city needs to be more aggressive about looking what other cities are doing with the permits. And I know the first time that when I was the mayor for the first time, it was the first thing that I did. We doubled the price of the permits and it was not a nice thing for some people, but we need to start charging what is right because there's a lot of services that people are requesting from us in Parks and Rec. And ambulance services, more police men in the police department. The money has to come from somewhere. But maybe there's something that do our research, do something and go ahead and start looking at ways to raise funds.
Yeah, and not just racing. One thing that I think also we have to be very thoughtful and sensible is about how we spend our money. I think it's two things because there's things that I see and I think that also there are ways, but this is the part where it gets a little bit complicated as I think what we need the support from council. So, tentative budget. And this is just for an overview of the practices that we follow to ensure that we have a fiscally sustainable budget. We always look out to have at least 4 months of operational reserves. We have reserves for our PSPRS fund, which we just paid. And right now it is on the investment agency with PSPRS, but that continues, it's just protected for any investments, non-performance. Also, we,
Can you spell out PSPRS for everybody?
PSPRS, Public Safety Pension Retirement System.
The retirement. Okay.
That was a test.
I knew something there, but too many.
If I don't know, I have here the tissues. Okay. And also we have we have other servers. We have right now, we have about I think 70 million in debt. So we have to make sure that we have protection also to make sure that we have at least 12 months of interest and principal for the payments. We make a thorough analysis of ongoing expense and ongoing revenues to ensure that we match them appropriately. We don't wanna end up adopting a budget that is not gonna be sustainable. What's the point in hiring the 23 positions that are in the budget or giving raises or whatever we give if we're not gonna be able to sustain them at the long term. And also take benefit of the reserves that we have, make use of those. Like right now that I mentioned, we can pay the 4 million of her with the reserves that we have. If council is in agreement. This is a tough decision.
Well, it's not that tough because the reserves, how long did it take us to think of the $32 million reserves? 20 years?
Right, and that's one part of the presentation, Councilmember Rosales, that I was gonna say, even though that is nice to do everything that is there, for me is we have to make sure that we pick the projects that matter the most to us, because those are the ones that like, let's give priority to those. Because at the end of the day, we ended up spending 1 million, 2 million and something because it's there, but at the end of the day, is the impact in the community is not that great. So that's the analysis that we need to make. Also, we have to adhere to a state statute. We have a public hearing, adoption of a tentative budget. We have to adopt by state statute a balanced budget. Expenditure must not exceed revenues. And we have to adhere to a state expenditure limitation. So expenditure limitation is something that we watch very closely. There are heavy fines if we go over that limit. And right now, with a 10 million increase in expenses that we have, we are 1.3 million over. So that's what is double urgency of what we need to reduce. Yes, I was going to say. Yeah, what Rob was mentioning is expenditure limitation is a limit that the state imposed to the municipalities. There are ways on how we can get out of it. But right now, I don't think we're in a position that we want to get out of it just because we don't have revenue. I will be very concerned about removing the limit and start spending more money than we can sustain. But the state allows us to make exclusion that they do not count toward the limitations. You can see at the bottom, we have 105.9 million. That's our expenses for the budget, minus exclusions. So we know that we can reduce from there grants. None of the grants enters into that calculation. We can reduce HERF revenues. None of that goes into that. We reduce everything related to the trust spending. That also is not counted, and debt proceeds. So we take into consideration all of those factors. And once I reduce all of that, we get to the final amount. But right now we are about, our limit right now is 55 million, and I think we are 56.3 million. So we are 1.3 million over. So this is, I just put this for your reference. I'm not gonna go much into that. This is just to give you an idea of the revenue and expense distribution by fund, how much percentage each fund takes from the revenues that they come in. Usually we will see that it's 35% comes in, we will spend the same amount. But since there are some funds that have some reserves like water and wastewater, we see that the distribution is not equally. Again, one of the funds that caught my attention that I wouldn't want to see spending more is HERF, because the revenue that is coming in is 5%, but we see that it has 8%. So it's kind of we will want to see it at 5.5. But this is the part where we need to brainstorm. This is pretty much give you the net result by fund, the bottom line. We have some losses in water or shortfalls, I wanna call them shortfalls. I know that prior administrations didn't like the word deficits. In highway users, we have a shortfall of 4.2 million. Again, that's something that we need to talk about. Water has a shortfall of 4.8 million. I'm not concerned about. During the utilities presentation, you learned that we have about $10 million in reserves for infrastructure of water. And then we have the utility increase. We are in a good position to get that to fund the remaining of that infrastructure. The same for wastewater, even though they do not have a loss because the projects are moving into 25. Solid waste has a loss. We have a CIP expenditure, and that is a fund that, for budget purposes, we report on cash basis, but this is an enterprise fund. So that portion will get depreciated and we will find a way on how to finance, so making sure that that fund is balanced. General fund, we have a loss of 1.175. We have a loss, like I mentioned, it's not balanced. And in addition, right here, the revenues that we're seeing here includes like what I was talking about, the general revenues that we have an influx is taking in consideration investment income. Right now with the inflation, the return on investment is high. We cannot count on any of that revenue to pay salaries. So even though that right now you hear, I assure you that if I take that component from there, the loss will be greater. So by state statute, we need a balanced budget. Budget 2024 is not balanced. We need your direction and your support, and we need to work together to find a solution.
Get some more rocks. Get some more rocks.
I couldn't find that. So point for consideration, diversify and increase revenue. Okay, we need to get creative. We need to find revenues, and maybe you should have there. Diversify, increase revenues, and decrease revenues. And I think my time is already up.
Got 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes.
Reserves and carryovers need to have a plan before they are gone. Right now, when I explain, like we have to prioritize what it matters the most. Where do we want to utilize the money? Retention of personnel and vacancies, that's a major issue. We had 59 vacancies in 2022, and in 2023, we have 46 vacancies. So when we think about it, and I just want to say that Ms. Cortez, she has been doing a excellent job hiring. But I was looking at her yesterday that she hires, and then the next day somebody leaves. So it's kind of, so it's not a lack of efforts from HR, it's just like the situation, right? Rotation. Like maybe she hires 2 and then the next day 3 are gone. And just to mention also, those vacancies are across the board. 12% are from public safety, no, 25% are for public safety, but 75% are for the remaining general fund and all other funds. So that issue of retention and employees leaving are across the board. So we need to set a strategy we want to achieve, and we need to revise our CIP to ensure feasibility. Our budget, 2023, 28.5 million. Budget 2020 projections, we want to spend 8.7 million. So I have seen this year after year, we are very optimistic and aggressive and planning and putting for projects, but at the end of the day, for some reason, they are not completed. That messed up also our financial planning. For me, it's easier if I have realistic figures of what they are going to accomplish rather than just putting a lot of projects, making a good evaluation of really what is going to be completed and what is not. Because that project that is there is taking money from other things that we can be doing. Thank you. And looking ahead, we are looking forward to the future of San Luis.
By 2040, the population is projected to be over 70,000 residents. We are excited about the city, the growth. We have challenges. We need to plan for water and wastewater infrastructure to support that growth. Make sure we have responsive law enforcement, quality parks for our community, plan for road infrastructure, and make sure that we have a good financial basis to make sure that we have appropriate public service levels. So just want to say this, working together, everything is possible. Even though it looks challenging, if we work together, we can make it work. So that's all for me.
Questions, comments? Who wants to come out with $1.2 million? Let's get it over with. Vamos a pasar la canasta. No.
You're the one
The last presenter for tonight is the Department of Public Works, Mr. Loco Vera and Mr. Manuel Hernandez.
Esto que no me gusta de pues.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, honorable council members and staff. Like our colleagues in the finance department, we're also excited to be here. And we also agree it is a very important event. It is our opportunity to present to you our priorities and your opportunity to provide your input. Some handouts will be going out to you. One providing some information about solid waste, cost comparison, and the other one for street improvement projects. So our Public Works Department is comprised of 6 divisions. Public Works Administration, our highway users, our wastewater and water teams, our fleet services division, and our solid waste. Our mission at Public Works is to effectively maintain and develop our infrastructure to enhance the quality of life of our residents and businesses by using available resources in a prudent and cost-effective manner and consistent with the vision and goals of our community. So the picture here in this slide represents our team. It also represents our current organizational chart as well as our plan for the future. If you look below at the bottom 2 positions, these are positions we'll be requesting in the upcoming years. Solid waste. So for our solid waste division, we have 2 earmarked projects. One, another solid waste truck that we'd like to onboard and procure, and another one would be the reloader for the solid waste operations. Our fleet services division. We will have some carryover from our fleet services new building. We have 300,000 earmarked for that. Our new request for position will be a new lead mechanic, 1 new mechanic assistant, and an administrative assistant. And now I'll hand this over to Elohio. Hear me?
So I'll start with our highway users division. Mike mentioned, that's one of the projects, one of the divisions that has a lot of streets projects. In our presentation, we only listed the top 4 that we thought was priority. In the handout, as well as I believe in the document, Department of Finance prepared shows a lot more projects that have been identified as CIP. So I'll start off with, County 22nd and Fourth Avenue, that's a project that's currently in design. And it'll be carrying over to next fiscal year, totaling about approximately $600,000. Then we have County 22nd, Taiwan Road. Same thing, actually on that one, we have two phases, phase one is under, gonna be going to construction, it's actually bidding next week. And then the next phase on that will be actually traffic signal there as well. Only 700,000. Third project is Fourth Avenue and Union Street intersection. That's one that was actually initially part of, the Fourth Avenue and Sunset Valley's intersection project. But since that's gonna be now part of the, Sunset Lighting project, we had to take it out of that portion. And we're gonna handle that project separately. And that project seems less important if you're thinking about it, just the intersection. But I guess as a functionality, once we have a signal on Fourth Avenue, we have the signal on Cesar Chavez in Ford. This one will be the, following, having a four-way stop at that intersection, which is back up the traffic with the traffic signal. So we're trying to stay a little bit ahead of the upcoming issues that might arise with the Cesar Chavez improvements. And then the last one is payment preservation. Usually we got asked for about 350,000. We're doing more this fiscal year, so we reduced next year to try and help a little bit in the budget.
Is that gonna be enough, Filogio?
So-
To keep our 10-year project?
Yes, actually, on that one, I was gonna, thank council for supporting this one. I think when I started, it was one of the first goals was trying to make the streets better. We can't make all the streets new, but we can try to preserve them, have them in decent condition. And I think we've done a fairly good job. So the question for that one, I think our streets are to a point where they're pretty good. The ones that need replacement, pavement preservation just helps them look a little bit better, but at the end of the day, those will become replacement here in the next 3 to 5 years. So 100,000, I think should be okay. I think our program can take a real break. I think we should be fine.
We're not gonna step backward by taking that break, so
Right.
you know better what's needed, and so that's.
And I think that's one of the reasons we still left it in there. We don't want anybody to forget about our pavement preservation program. We should reduce the amount. And some of that amount that we had originally that year, we're gonna be doing it this fiscal year. Here in the next month and a half, roughly.
Doing it for this year, right? It's not like you're gonna increase for the next 25. It's not like you're gonna, okay, stop it. So it's just taking a little break. I understand what you're talking.
Right, and it was really working with finance and everything else that's happening. We're doing a little bit more this fiscal year and doing a little bit less next fiscal year. But really, I don't think it's healthy for any city to drop pavement preservation.
They're very persistent that we need to see them streets. That's that.
Okay, thank you. So on the handout, we have a list of projects. I just want to point out that list of projects is sort of one that council can choose to move up a priority or change. We just thought that the ones in red or the ones listed in the presentation are the priority at this point. But like finance director presented, we can always adjust and change things around. Any questions on her? Comments? Yes.
I hate to spoil your presentation, I apologize for that, but I talk pretty loud. Okay, Mayor and members of the council, as you know, we've been working with General Service Administration. There are some improvements that are gonna be needed on U Street. We have been trying to push all the costs to GSA. They've been pushing back. Their term is that the funding goes and is to improve the port of entry, the actual site, not of improvements outside their property. We were able to push back and they are looking at a cost sharing. We're looking at about 1.2 million costs for the U Street improvements only. They have, or at least they're proposing to discuss this cost sharing proposal with their legal staff. They're gonna take about 1.2 million, I think it is. And they're actually pushing about 400,000 back to the city. Yeah, they would do the south side and we would do the north. So that is something that is not included in this presentation. That is something that you're gonna have to consider, including it in our budget this coming year. Correct, if they start before July.
Right, and I think that's one of the uncertainties that we really don't have a schedule. I mean, the project's gonna consist or gonna be completed in the next 5 years. This just happened a week and a half ago, maybe, roughly. And they don't have a schedule. They don't know whether they're gonna need $50,000 or they're gonna need all $300,000, right? It's something that it will have to be something.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I know, right?
Well, you know, to add to that,
more surprises.
well, to add to that comment, you know, when this project started was 267 million, then 290, now we're at 311. I got it from a good source that there is money there, but we as a city need to go after it for additional help for the infrastructure side of it. So whether they're gonna be grants or something, that's something we have to figure out, but I was told there's money there, but they're hiding it, they're not telling us, but that's the hard part. Contingency funds, yeah, so that's something that will help us in some projects, but usually, yeah, at least for sure.
Okay, I'll be moving on to the water division. So the water division, we are both, we were able to deliver, enough water to our residents. Really, where the system has been struggling is really on the fire hose. Some of the bigger commercial industrial facilities are going up. They do require significantly more fire hoses in some areas than we can supply. So we're sort of working on beefing up our system to be able to do that. So the projects that we have on here, they really can't be pushed off too much. I mean, they're here, it's a priority. I'll start off with the well site 5, 6, and 7 rehabilitation. That's a project that we actually have in the budget this fiscal year. We can get a vendor or a contractor to do the work within our window where we can actually afford to take down those storage tanks. So now, we're gonna be pushing up for next year. And really the plan is really the same thing also as the paying for duration. We're trying to extend the life of these tanks. We need to use these stuff for rehabilitation at a minimum once every 15 years. And all 3 of them exceed that. 1.2 million on that project. The next one, well site 5, well and infiltration system. That's our public work chart. Currently, we have a storage tank there. And now we're gonna be adding a well and a manganese treatment unit that goes with it. That actually will be providing about 3.2 million gallons per day. So that's more than half of the water that the city uses up right now. So that will be a significant increase, and that will also help us be able to abandon well site 1 and well site 2. Those are the original wells that don't produce very much, but they help at this point. 1.6 million. And that's actually a project that we started this fiscal year. Due to the delays on deliveries of equipment and stuff like that, we weren't able to spend more. But that, we're a little bit under half as far as expanding on that project. Next project, well site 7 capacity improvements. That's a combination of piping, booster pump improvements, and possibly a storage tank. And that's mainly also to help with the growth in the east part of town. And then the last one is more of a security. It's really our gate and fencing for public works yard. 230,000. We're asking for a heavy equipment operator for our water division. And mainly just because we don't have somebody that's at a level that we can fully rely on for excavation emergencies. Usually if something happens right now, we have people that can move and do some equipment operator, but not 100% competent. So we always still want somebody from highway. That's really the facts. And now that gentleman's being, shared between water and wastewater. So we're to a point where we're asking for somebody in water and we'll be asking for somebody in wastewater. Any comments on water? Moving on to wastewater. So wastewater, a while back, we did a study on which treatment plant, we should be expanding, whether the east or the west. We decided to go with the west just because of the capacity that we were at. And that's gonna be, designed next fiscal year. We're estimating about a $1 million design fee of that. And then we're gonna move right into construction right after. The next one is wastewater treatment plant expansion or improvements. Those are some improvements that are needed now. We did the design. So we're gonna be moving into construction soon, and that's mainly, so improvements in the chlorination system, in the contact chamber, headworks, which is the filtering of the trash out of the wastewater, the influence. And that's 1.3 million. The next one is safety improvements in the east wastewater treatment plant. That's more of a perimeter fencing and gate as well. There's a big development that's happening in the area. We could actually undertake that project this fiscal year, but just because of the work that was planned, it made sense to wait. So now, once that's completed, we can move on to this project. And then the last item on the infrastructure side is we're looking at, keeping up on the program for manhole replacements, replacements or maintenance. Our infrastructure is aging, so we have to keep up with the aging, so that we don't have to do replacements. We'll try to save as many as we can. So that's something that we have to get on. And we've done some over the years, but we really need to start a program to be able to do 6, 8 of them every year. And the next one is also the heavy equipment operator for wastewater. Same situation in water. We don't have somebody that's fully competent for doing excavation. Any questions on wastewater?
Yeah, for the new council members, how much does each manhole run about the replacement?
So I guess if it's brand new construction,
I mean, the maintenance one.
so 15,000. But that's when there's nothing around there. And it also depends on the depth. It just mainly how much material is going in. When we are trying to replace a manhole that's 15, 20 feet deep next to a house, next to power lines, and the price can go through the roof. So what we're trying to do is trying to prevent that replacement. We're trying to do recoatings, or in some cases where recoatings is not an option, we have to do like an insert. So we have some of those that we need inserts at this point. We have some that need replacement, but there are areas where we don't have building right next to it. So we're still in good place. We just need to aggressively attack this program. Okay.
How many manholes are we gonna repair or replace with this 200,000?
So right now,
He said 6 to 8.
yes. I think for this first year, that's what we think, because we have some urgent ones. And then after that, I think, and it's hard to say because we'll have to prioritize. We have identified a few years back about 60 that needed attention, but they weren't all severe. They were just, we have to get to them. It just depends which one. And some of them might be really bad and shallow, but they'll be too expensive. And some of them are fairly decent, that might be epoxy, for example, but they might be 25 foot. So it just varies. I think 6 to 8 with this amount sounds reasonable.
How many total do we need citywide?
I was gonna ask that.
So more than 60. We identified 60 about maybe 4 to 6 years ago. And then COVID hit, we haven't really continued. I mean, these things don't go bad from one year to the other. They slowly deteriorate. Now, the one thing that's beneficial on that item or topic, we do have required polymer manholes and our standards. And those are really good for this. I mean, they give us a 50-year warranty on the product. So it's expensive for the developers, but it is good for us. And I've heard contractors say, you know, it's good for them too. They move sort of fast after paying the steeper price on it, but they do. I think it's going to be a good thing for the city down the road for sure. Anything else on wastewater? So, you know, looking at things like on the business side, it seems like maybe finance doesn't will struggle. but we need to continue to invest. We need to continue to invest in our infrastructure, streets, water, wastewater, solid waste, fleet, and I'm sure all the other departments as well. And, but, you know, in the investment portion of it, we need to recognize that our staff is one of our bigger assets. We just, somebody discussed the turnover, we train them, we work with them, and then we lose them. And sometimes, you know, we have to look at it, whether it's worth the investment, and then losing everything, so pay or benefits or something else to another agency. Some of the other key numbers that I wanted to sort of mention for public works. For the last 3 years, we've had between 13 and 14 average vacancies. Right now, we're a 63 person department, having 14 vacancies is a significant impact. And some of these facilities, some of these divisions are water, wastewater, which have been like 60% staff in the last 3 years. So these are the divisions that actually have on-call. You know, they have to be working weekends, rotating. So it has been a big burden for the operations. But, you know, thankfully, the staff has stuck with us, still here with us, some of them. But it's been hard, you know, attracting new employees to join the team. Perfectly, we've been sort of 80% staff for the last 3 years, average. And then there's some positions that we up to recruit for, such as our chief wastewater operator, which retired, and I haven't been able to get applicants off like this. Well, we have an engineer position and administration that we had since 2020. We haven't really been able to get somebody that's qualified.
For the money that you offering, they don't want to come.
Correct. And that's where I think, the conclusion is really, we need council support, and I'm happy some of the departments are getting that council support to try to keep staff, because we understand that we have the same issue, and we want to also be able to provide a good service and continue service for essential things that the city has to offer to our residents. Well, okay, thank you. Any question for us? We kept it short and sweet.
All right.
I do have a question regarding the list that you provided. I don't. Item number 8 on the sheet that you provided is the F Street widening design, the right of way. It's at 1.2 million.
Next report.
Item number 8 in your CIP. Your CIP. So is right away gonna cost us 1.2 million? Because we already approved the design, meeting before.
I think he probably gives us a design, the build out and the right of way, the right of way state, so that's a little bit of everything.
So that,
For the right of way, in the way we wrote it down, it could be $1,000, it could be more. We actually do have right of way for the actual widening. But once the design's complete, you might have little tapers at the corners that might be needed. I mean, those things really don't come out till the design is finalized. So that's the reason why right of way is included. But here I would say that 99% of it's not right of way. It'll be design or construction as far as.
so this includes construction on the 1.2 million?
Yes, it's everything. The design's actually in process right now. And that's why one of the reasons we pushed it at lower priority. But at the end of the day, you know, we know that the intersection on the F and Cesar Chavez is coming, part of the Cesar Chavez widening project. And we know that the traffic signal on F and 23.5 is also coming as part of the school improvements. So that's one of the main reasons it was pushed down. I know earlier council meetings, it was like high priority, but that was the reason staff decided to push it out.
This is for that.
Construction too, that's why I thought, I thought it was a lot of money just for right away.
Thank you.
Hey, what about the state? For the design,
Yeah, that work. Anybody else?
yes.
If not,
Yes.
there's some, yes? Okay.
Eulogio, thank you for, I guess, saying that staff are very
asset. I think all of us agree with you. With that being said, it's important and I know we kind of struggle with the right of way, because we don't know how much it is or not, and that's why we have some funky streets in the old parts of town because someone was lazy enough to, acquire the right of way or what for it. But I'm glad you're doing that. I do have a question because of, on your organizational chart. Here is different than what we have here and what you presented over here. And I don't see on the salary adjustment or classification, another assistant public works director. Which one is it?
So,
I would rather just, I know we cannot talk about the staff, but, so they have that, and then you mentioned the not being able to find a civil engineer. And, I on the material, we talked about an engineering division or something that would make that person earn more money. Or maybe the resolution that was just approved by my fellow council members and well, I will to pay you for weekends to review plans and make that more efficient, or how is that gonna work?
So yes, I think we bring up, we'll discuss in the direction of taking the workshops. So this workshop is sort of the situation in public works, sort of exactly what we have here, trying to get the support. Thankfully, we had somebody in the department that was able to step up and help me on the administrative side, and that's one of the reasons we have the additional assistant public works director. We do have a structure that could be kept with what's shown here that would help on the engineering side as well. And it's still under review. It just barely been discussed and moved on. But that's really the main difference in what's shown here and possibly what's shown in the actual finance what is it? I don't know if that was enough there.
We. After council members, this is the vendor charts, the charts that are in your books. Some of them are incorrect. My suggestion will be looking at these ones. This is something that we prepared. It was a difficult process. That's something that I talked to the city manager and Jenny, because it was challenging. There are so many departments and positions, so we hope next year we will do a different approach to avoid this type of situation. This should be correct, but I cannot guarantee, unfortunately. But we did the best that we could. This one has this is the one that you sent me in the morning. Oh, yesterday, I think. Yeah.
So, as soon as we finish our retreat and settle on salaries, we're contemplating restructuring our private works, planning, and the building. First thing is figure out how much money we have for staff. Nothing will change, now add-on, is reshuffling employees. So even if that's a planned organizational chart, the end result will probably end up different.
So we'll get to review that.
Yes. As part of the reorganization, yes. You'll get the reclassifications and the reorgs.
Yeah, and this is a matter of, I'm sorry, Mayor. Just as a way of clarification, there's always has been that dilemma, right? Do we put the proposed structure or do we put the current structure in the budget book? So in the budget book, we always put the current structure, how we are right now, because what Mr. Velez is mentioning, that is that now that it was issues and if there's gonna be a structure, that is what is up for discussion.
Yeah, but I didn't see on the reclass, usually that's in the list, on the list, like if you're gonna change public works, planning, and what's the other one? You said building, I don't see any salary adjustments here. So that's, I guess that's why my question was, because he's with two assistant directors. here. And then, and about the the engineering division, I guess. So that's. No, it's not there.
Yeah, it's not there.
So that's why I'm asking, I mean, our draft of what's planned to be changed.
So just, the one showing in my presentation, it's actually, except the green ones shown on my slide, really, everything sort of, that's the way we're working now. So, the engineer is a position that we haven't been able to fill since 2020. We had the project manager fill. And then we had the need for assistance above that position, which the project manager stepped up to help and administrative duties. So we do actually have the one we have in our presentation, that's that we're functioning now, except with vacancies, right? But we do have an interim assistant public works director or acting assistant public works director. It's a temporary assignment, I guess that's the wording that I used in my presentation. It's a temporary assistant because of the situation we have.
Are we done?
Okay. So we have something there in your handouts that have a little information on recycling. I think it was something that was asked earlier. You were asked to be ready for it. I think,
The cover sheet.
yeah, yes, I have.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. So we did provide a little bit of information. We performed an internal study on the cost comparison. Mind you, a special note, you should pay attention to, there are no impact fees listed because they can't be quantified just yet. The vendors have informed us, the one vendor that was responsive to the ballpark figure quote did mention there would be impact fees for them purchasing solid waste vehicles. Just like we would. So those go for about approximately 500,000 a piece. Additionally, the containers. Those could be several $100,000. And that would all be baked into the monthly cost. So what you have here is the cost in comparison to what we're currently charging to what that competitor or that service provider would provide the service just for trash services, solid waste services at the $33.40 a month. And if you wanted recycling, that's the cost minus any impacts. Another consideration for council is what do you mean by we want to recycle? Do you truly want to recycle or do you want to say that you recycle? Because one thing you need to take in mind is what's called contamination rate. So a company that takes your recyclables on 1 or 2 days of your service will take those materials. How much of that material at the 100%, right? How much of that percentage will actually go to recycle? How much of that has an intrinsic value and can be sold? So companies will tell you they have anywhere from 40, 50, 60, but you go onto their site, it's closer to 10, 15. And those are the good numbers. So that's something you need to consider. Do you want to say you're recycling or do you actually want to recycle? Those are things you want to consider. How do you do one or the other? On-site visual inspection. So you would have to go and confirm that the vendor you've selected through an RFP process is doing what they say they're doing. If you go onto some of these sites, I do want to caution you. Imagine a community the size of 100,000 people. And on Tuesday and Thursday, they dump every single last ton of their materials. And there's 3 people, I'm not kidding, 3 people with gloves on, sorting out a mountain of waste that's supposed to be recycled. Once you see that, then you start really considering what the contamination rates are. Okay.
Very good information. Thank you.
Yes.
Is this included in the budget or is just a proposal right now for review?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, no, that is just information.
Information.
We know that this is an important topic.
Oh,
We
okay.
just wanted to wrote some with a little bit of information about an internal study we did just to show a cost comparison.
Anybody else? 6:43. Do you guys wanna stay or wanna go home? Up to you. Yes, I'll make a motion. They don't wanna go home.
I want to recess till tomorrow at 8 in the morning.
There's a motion in a second. Everybody that is in agreement signifying by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries. Hasta mañana si quiere.
So there's a lot of left over, if you wanna take it home, you're welcome.
I'm gonna take one.
Yeah.